The look on Emma's face when she saw me at her graduation ceremony said everything. Her eyes narrowed, jaw tightening as she approached me in her cap and gown. "What are you doing in the front row?" she asked, her voice cold. "Those seats are for family. I'm David Mitchell, and at 45, I've spent the last 12 years being Emma's stepfather, or at least trying to be." Standing there in my best suit, clutching the bouquet of sunflowers she once told me were her favorite, I felt my heart sink. "I am family, Emma," I said softly, but she was already shaking her head. "No, you're just the guy my mom married. My real dad is coming, and he needs this seat." She glanced over her shoulder, scanning the crowd. "You can sit in the back. There's plenty of room there." I watched as she waved enthusiastically to someone behind me. Tom, her biological father, strode up in his expensive suit, perfect hair, and practiced smile. The same man who'd missed her school plays, forgotten her birthdays, and disappeared for months at a time throughout her childhood. But he was her real dad. "Princess," he called out, wrapping her in a hug. "Your big day is finally here." I quietly gathered my things and moved to the back row, just as Emma had suggested. From there, I could see everything. How she beamed at Tom, how she introduced him proudly to her friends, how she pretended not to notice me at all. My wife Sarah squeezed my hand as I sat down beside her. "She's just excited to see Tom," she whispered. "You know how she gets when he's around." I did know. I'd watched for 12 years as Emma chased after Tom's approval, making excuses for his absences, cherishing the rare moments he decided to show up. Meanwhile, I was there every day, helping with homework, attending her soccer games, holding her when she cried after Tom missed another holiday. The ceremony began, and I watched as Emma walked across the stage to receive her diploma. My chest swelled with pride despite everything. I remembered the late nights helping her study for calculus, the weekends spent practicing her valedictorian speech, the countless college applications we reviewed together at the kitchen table. As she delivered her speech, I mouthed the words along with her. Not because I'd helped her write it, but because I'd heard her practice it so many times in her room when she thought no one was listening. She was brilliant, passionate, and determined, everything I'd hoped she'd become. After the ceremony, I waited at the back of the crowd as Emma posed for pictures with Tom. He draped his arm around her shoulders, playing the part of the proud father perfectly. I clutched a small envelope in my pocket, wondering if I should even bother giving it to her. "David," Sarah called out, "come take a picture with Emma." Emma's smile faltered as I approached. "Mom, we've taken enough pictures. Besides, Dad and I are going to lunch to celebrate." Tom checked his watch, his expression shifting. "Actually, Princess, something's come up at work. Rain check." I watched the familiar disappointment flash across Emma's face before she covered it with a practiced smile. "Of course, Dad. I understand. Work is important." As Tom hurried away with promises to make it up to her, I saw Emma's shoulders slump slightly, the same way they had every time he'd let her down over the years. But this time was different. This time, I had something to show her. "Emma," I said, stepping forward. "Before you go, there's something I need to tell you. Something I've been keeping secret for the past 10 years. She turned to me, her expression guarded. "What are you talking about?" I pulled out my phone and opened my email, finding the message I'd received just that morning. "Remember when you were 12, and you wanted to go to that prestigious science camp, but Tom said he couldn't afford it?" "Yeah," she said slowly. "Mom said we couldn't manage it either." "You went anyway," I continued, "because they offered you a scholarship." She nodded, confusion crossing her face. "What about it?" "It wasn't exactly a scholarship, Emma. I've been secretly funding your dreams for the past 10 years, making sure you had every opportunity to succeed. The science camp, the soccer tournaments, the academic competitions. I made anonymous donations to ensure you could participate in all of them." Emma's eyes widened, but I wasn't finished. I handed her the envelope from my pocket. "And this is my final gift. Open it." Her hands trembled slightly as she tore open the envelope. Inside was a letter confirming that her college tuition had been paid in full. Anonymously, of course, just like everything else I'd done for her over the years. "But how?" she whispered, staring at the letter. "Why?" "Because that's what fathers do, Emma. Real ones, anyway." Emma stared at the letter, her hands shaking. The bustling crowd of graduates and families around us seemed to fade away as she processed what I just revealed. Her mouth opened and closed several times before she finally found her voice. I don't understand, she said, looking up at me. You've been doing this since I was 12. All those opportunities, they were you. I nodded, watching her face carefully. Every single one. The summer robotics program you loved so much. I worked extra shifts at the engineering firm to cover it. Those special art classes you wanted to try. I sold my vintage car collection. When you needed a new laptop for your coding projects, I picked up weekend consulting work. But, she glanced at the graduation crowds, then back at me. Why didn't you ever tell me? Because I didn't want you to feel obligated to love me, I said simply. I wanted you to have every chance to pursue your dreams without feeling like you owed me anything in return. Sarah stepped forward, her eyes glistening. David, you never told me about any of this. The extra work, the car collection. I knew you'd try to stop me. I smiled at my wife. You'd say it was too much, that we should split the costs with Tom. But I wanted to do this. Emma deserved every opportunity, regardless of who her real dad was. Emma's face crumpled slightly at those words, her own words thrown back at her. She looked down at the college tuition letter again, her fingers tracing over the amount. It was substantial, representing years of careful saving and planning on my part. The anonymous donor who funded the girls' coding initiative at my high school, she said slowly, realization dawning. That was you too, wasn't it? I shrugged. You were so passionate about getting more girls into STEM. I couldn't let that dream die just because the school didn't have the budget. And my first computer, the one that mysteriously showed up on my birthday when Tom, forgot again. You need it for your programming classes, I said softly. I couldn't bear to see you disappointed on your birthday, again. Emma's lower lip trembled. The emergency fund that helped Jessica's family when her mom got sick. The one that meant she didn't have to drop out and could stay your lab partner. I nodded. You were so worried about losing your best friend. It seemed like the right thing to do. All this time, she whispered, I thought it was just luck. Random acts of kindness from strangers. But it was you. It was always you. The crowd around us had thinned considerably, families heading off to their celebration lunches. Emma looked around, suddenly seeming to notice Tom's absence again. But this time, instead of disappointment, there was something else in her expression, understanding. You know what the worst part is? She said, her voice thick with emotion. I remember telling you about every single one of these things, excitedly sharing the good news when these mysterious opportunities came up. And you just smiled. You celebrated with me like you were hearing it for the first time. Your joy was all I needed, I replied. Seeing you light up, watching you succeed, that was worth every sacrifice. Emma clutched the letter to her chest, tears finally spilling over. But I've been so awful to you, all these years, pushing you away, insisting you weren't my real father. And you just kept loving me, supporting me. Why? Because that's what parents do, Emma. Real parents. We love our children unconditionally, even when they push us away. Even when it hurts. We keep showing up, keep trying, keep supporting, whether they know about it or not. Sarah wrapped her arm around my waist, leaning into me. David's right, honey. Being a real parent isn't about biology. It's about being there, day after day, in all the ways that matter. Emma looked at us both, really looked at us, perhaps for the first time seeing the truth that had been in front of her all along. Then, without warning, she stepped forward and threw her arms around me. I'm so sorry, she sobbed into my shoulder. I'm so sorry. I held her close, feeling the walls she'd built between us finally starting to crumble. You have nothing to be sorry for, I whispered. Nothing at all. That evening, after the graduation celebrations had wound down, Emma sat with me in our backyard. The same backyard where I pushed her on the swing set, taught her to ride a bike, and helped her with countless science projects. The fairy lights we'd strung up years ago still twinkled overhead, casting a warm glow over us. I found something in my room earlier, she said, pulling out a worn notebook. Remember this? I smiled, recognizing the purple cover immediately. Your dream journal. You started it when you were 13. She opened it carefully, revealing pages filled with her teenage handwriting. I was reading through it, and I noticed something. Every single dream I wrote down in here, you helped make it come true, even the silly ones. She flipped through the pages. Like this, I wish I could go to space camp. 2 months later, I got that lucky scholarship. And here, I want to learn to play guitar, but lessons are too expensive. Then that guitar showed up at Christmas, supposedly from the whole family. You have a good memory, I said softly. No, she shook her head. I have a selective memory. I remembered all the good things that happened, but I chose to forget who was really behind them. It was easier to keep pushing you away when I didn't acknowledge everything you did for me. She turned to another page. But you know what really got me? This entry from when I was 15. I wish my real dad would come to my science fair. Her voice cracked slightly. You didn't show up, but you did. You took off work early and sat in the front row, grinning like I'd just won a Nobel Prize. Your project on renewable energy was brilliant, I reminded her. You deserve to have someone there cheering you on. Emma closed the journal, running her fingers over its worn cover. Earlier today, after Tom left, I called him. Asked him why he never seemed to have time for me growing up. I tensed, preparing myself for whatever pain his response had caused her. You know what he said? She continued, her voice steady. He said he knew I was in good hands, that he saw how much you cared for me, how much you were doing for me. He said he stepped back because he couldn't compete with the father you were being. Emma, I never meant to replace him. I know, she interrupted. But you did something better. You showed me what a real father is. Not someone who shares my DNA, but someone who shares my dreams, who fights for them as hard as I do, maybe even harder. She reached into her bag and pulled out a small package. I got this for you today, after everything. It's not much, but I unwrapped it carefully. Inside was a photo frame, and when I turned it over, my breath caught in my throat. It was a picture from her science fair, one I'd never seen before. In it, I was watching her present her project, my face filled with unmistakable pride. Written across the bottom in her handwriting were the words, "To my real dad, thank you for showing me what that truly means." Emma, I whispered, touching the glass gently. I was so focused on having a real father that I couldn't see I already had one, she said, wiping tears from her cheeks. One who didn't just show up for the big moments, but created them. Who didn't just say he was proud of me, but proved it every single day. Sarah appeared at the back door, smiling at us through happy tears. Dinner's ready if you two can pause the emotional breakthroughs for a few minutes. Emma stood up, offering me her hand. Actually, Mom, I was thinking maybe we could go out to celebrate. All three of us, as a family, a real one. Over dinner at our local Italian restaurant, the same one where we'd celebrated Emma's first science fair win. We talked and laughed like we hadn't in years. Emma shared her plans for college, her eyes shining with excitement as she described the engineering program she'd be starting in the fall. You know, she said, twirling pasta on her fork, all those anonymous donations over the years, they didn't just help me. They showed me the kind of person I want to be, someone who lifts others up, who gives without expecting anything in return. Sarah reached across the table, squeezing my hand. That's exactly who your father is. Emma nodded, and this time when she said father, I knew she meant me. Which is why I've decided to start a scholarship fund at my high school. For girls interested in STEM, and I want to name it after you, Dad. The word dad from her lips made my heart swell. After 12 years of David or just avoiding addressing me at all, this simple word meant everything. You don't have to do that, I said. I know, she smiled. But I want to. Because real fathers teach their children not just to chase their dreams, but to help others chase theirs too. And you've taught me that better than anyone. As we drove home that night, Emma fell asleep in the backseat, just like she used to when she was little. Looking at her in the rearview mirror, I saw both the little girl she had been and the amazing woman she was becoming. Sometimes the greatest gifts we give our children aren't the ones they can see, but the examples we set through our actions. And sometimes the love we give silently, without recognition or reward, speaks the loudest of all.